is a Yawmul Ashura, and it is one of the great day in Islamic calendar. Last month in Zulhijjah, on the 10th of Zulhijjah, that was also a great day, which we called Eidul Adha, or that is also day of sacrifice. And during that day, we make the festival, we make the feast, or we make the Eid to enjoy. And today, and that day on the day 10th of Zulhijjah, and today also, sorry, not today, I correct myself. Tomorrow, inshallah, the 10th of Muharram, which is Ashura. But I'm going to speak for that today. So today is 9th of Muharram, and tomorrow will be the 10th of Muharram, which will be the Ashura. Ashura means is coming from number 10, the 10th day. And the two great things happen on that day after the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But before the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there were many things happen on that day, which includes mentioned in the hadith that Prophet Musa alayhi salam and his followers, the Bani Israel, they were saved by Allah from Fir'aun, the king, the Pharaoh. They were passed through the Red Sea, and then the Fir'aun, the king, and his army, they followed too, and they were drowned. And the Musa alayhi salam, Prophet Musa, and his companions were past the Red Sea. And when in Medina, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam found out that the Jews or the Yahudi, they were fasting on the day of Ashura because of giving thanks to Allah. Giving thanks to Allah for the salvation they got from Allah on that day. That the Prophet Musa and his followers were saved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they were fasting on that day. The Prophet Muhammad said, we are more closer to Prophet Musa, then we are going to fast too also. So he said the next year we are going to fast on Ashura. But after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, a great incident happened. His family, all his family were involved. His grandson, Husayn, radiallahu anhu, his children, his wives, his sons, his daughters, his brother, his nephews, relatives, and his friends, and his followers. They were 72. They were involved in a great sacrifice. They were involved in a great sacrifice for the sake of Allah. And there are two great things I said a while ago. What is my mean to say? That one thing, it was the greatest sacrifice for all mankind. In the whole mankind. In the whole human history. You cannot get this kind of sacrifice in a human history. That's happened on Yawmul Ashura. Given by the Prophet's family. The family of the Prophet Muhammad. They were given the greatest sacrifice of human history. And the number two things, what I was mean to say, the number two things, that was the greatest trial. As Allah said in Surah Al-Ankabut, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, hasiban nasu an yutraku an yaqulu amanna wa hum la yuftanun. Allah said in the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, Alif Lam Mim. Did the man think that they will be neglected by just saying they will be just given the pass? No problem anymore. Just say La ilaha illallah. Just say I believe, that's enough. And they will not be tested. So it's not right. It's not enough that I believe and then there is no test. It's not enough you say La ilaha illallah and there will be no trial. So it is definitely that all those who say we believe, lahat ng pananampalataya, meron trial, subok. If you think that you say I believe and that's enough, then Allah said no. It's not the case. It's not just enough that you say I believe. and you will go into the paradise? No. There must be the trials. You cannot go to the paradise without the trials. So there is no human being in the world, he can say, I believe and there is no trial for me, then you are not right. Mali. If you believe, then there should be the trials. So in this day of Karbala, the day of the Battle of Karbala, which will be tomorrow on 10th of Ashura, the two great things happen. Two great things happen. The one great thing is the greatest sacrifice given by a family. Not just the Husayn radiallahu anhu, but whole family. They give sacrifice for Islam, they give sacrifice for Allah. The greatest sacrifice of all time. And number two, things happen on that day, the greatest trial of all time. What kind of trial was this? The Husayn radiallahu anhu, the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad, his beloved grandson. He has a brother Hassan. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to kiss them, and he used to tell them, they are my flowers. He used to call the Hassan and Husayn. The Prophet Muhammad said, they are my flowers. He kissed them, he hugged them, and he loved them very much. And sometime there was a time when he made a khutbah, and the Imam Hassan and Imam Husayn came to the Jummah. He stepped down and he hugged them. That much love he has. And sometime the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he become like a horse. He put his feet on the down and he make his back like a horse. And he let his grandsons, Hassan and Hussein, to ride on him. Subhanallah, Prophet of Allah. A great Prophet of Allah. He became the ride for his grandsons. That was how much he loved to them. And then the Hussein radiallahu anhu, the beloved grandson of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he gives sacrifice. He becomes successful in the greatest trial, and all his family. And if you are not going to discuss this sacrifice, and we just ignore it, and we say you don't need to discuss it, it means you are betraying the family of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They give the sacrifice for us, for Islam, so Islam can be protected. The deen of Allah can be protected, and he doesn't want to discuss about it, it means you are wasting their sacrifice. It is it should be inspiration for us, that we must discuss about their story, what really happened, and how they successful in their trial, and what kind of trial infliction upon them, and how great sacrifice they give on that day. If I go from the beginning, it's a long story. I will go from the time when his brother Hassan radiallahu anhu, the grandson of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he became the Khalifa on the 30th year after the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. 30th year after the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the 5th Khalifa after Ali radiallahu anhu. Because of the majority of Muslim, they choose him to be Khalifa. So Hassan radiallahu anhu, he became Khalifa for the Muslimin, Amir al-Mu'minin. And he stepped down after 6 months to 1 year in the favor of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, and let him to be ruler. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the Khilafah will be only 30 years. After that, it will start the kingdom. So Muawiyah's rule was not considered as Khilafah, it was considered as a kingdom. But the rule of Islam, the approved system of rule is Khilafah. So Muawiyah became Khalifa, and he became the Khalifa for 20 years. And on the 60 years of Hijrah, or after the 50 years of the death of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Muawiyah, before he died, he appointed his son as the Khalifa, as the ruler. So Husayn radiallahu anhu and the many other Sahaba who has a great knowledge, they refused. They refused the hereditary rule. They say the father cannot appoint the ruler to his son. That's against Islamic law. So the main cause of the Husayn and the family of the Prophet Muhammad was not accepting the rule of Yazid, the son of Muawiyah, because he became the ruler by inheritance. By the throne of his father was given to him as inheritance. Islam is not inheritance for everyone, for anyone. Islam is not that you can inherit to your children the rule of Islam. The Khilafah, you cannot be given to your son because he is your son, so he should become the ruler after you. No. So Husayn radiallahu anhu, he refused to make bi'ah. Bi'ah, he pledged. He did not want to pledge to Yazid. Why? Because his rule was not according to the rule of Islam. The rule of Islam, that all the Muslim, they choose the Khalifa that, okay, you are our Khalifa because you deserve to be Khalifa. You are righteous, you have a knowledge of Quran, you have a knowledge of Sunnah, you are intelligent to be, and you have a good age to rule. And only the person who was right to rule that time was Husayn radiallahu anhu. With his age near to 60 years old, or more than 60 maybe, and he was well known in Quran, well known of Sunnah, and he was righteous, everything was perfect. And he was not after his rule, but he refused the rule of Yazid because it's against Islamic law. And that can be destructive. Today in the world we are talking about, like in Europe and America, they are abolishing the monarchies. What is monarchy? The king and then the prince will become king again. And then the prince become king again. That's haram in Islam. What's happening in Saudi Arabia? The King Abdul Aziz and his children are taking rule. That's not according to Islam. That's not according to Islam. Islam doesn't allow the monarchy. Islam doesn't allow the inheritance in the rule. The rule must be according to the choice of the Muslims. The Muslims has the leaders and leaders choose the leader. Okay, you are our Khalifa, you are our Amir al-Mu'minin. That's the way of Islam. So the main reason of Husayn radiallahu anhu to not to accept the rule of Yazid because it was the rule of monarchy. That was the rule of inheritance. And that's against Islamic law. So he stand up against the action which is against Islam. And then he was written the letters from Kufa, which is today's Iraq. The thousands of people were writing letters to him. They want to bay'ah to Hussein because they want the right Khalifa to be Hussein and not Yazid. And the Yazid Khilafah is illegal because it is not through the choice of the Muslims, but it is because of the inheritance. So Hussein radiallahu anhu, he was going towards Iraq to take the bay'ah from the people because it was used to be headquartered during previously in the time of his father, and they were stopped at Karbala. Yazid appointed the governor of Kufa, or which is part of the Iraq, Ibn Ziyad, and Ibn Ziyad, he sent the army to Karbala to stop the Hussein and all the family, all the friends. They were 72. And he told them that you have to make bay'ah to Yazid. You have to make surrender to Yazid. You say that you accept Yazid as Khalifa. And Hussein rejected that because it's against Islam. He doesn't want to submit anything which is injustice. He doesn't want to submit anything which is wrong, which is not right. Rather, he chooses to give his life to a brave person and not to be coward to submit to the wrong, to the injustice. So Hussein and his family, they decided not to give up to Yazid. They said, no, we will not accept this rule because it's against Islam. That's against the rule of Islam. That's against the Quran. Because the father cannot inherit his son to be a ruler. That is not allowed in Islam. That's against the rule of Allah. It's against the law of Allah. So the general for the army from Yazid was Amr bin Sa'ad. His father was a good person who ruled conquered the Persia and distribute all the wealth to the poor. But his son is fighting against the family of the Prophet Muhammad, Amr bin Sa'ad. And he say, no, if you will not submit to Yazid and his rule, we are going to fight with you here. So what they did, on the 8th of Ashura, 8th of Muharram, yesterday was 8, today is 9, and the 10 tomorrow. They control the water, the Furat, Euphrates River. They control the water. The family of the Prophet Muhammad, they have no water for 3 days. 8, 9, and 10, they have no water. Walang tubig. Even the 6 months old son of Husayn radiallahu anhu, the Ali Asghar, he has no water to drink. He's thirsty, crying for water. 3 days no water. And they are giving the sacrifice for the sake of Allah. So tomorrow when we fast, inshallah, Ashura, we can also intention that the family of the Prophet Muhammad, they sacrifice for Allah, for Islam. They have no water to drink. Tomorrow we fasting also same like them. For the sake of Allah, we will not drink water, we will not eat. We will be fasting. So one of the intention that we can make for tomorrow fasting, that we are copying the family of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that they were thirsty for the sake of Allah. We will be thirsty for the sake of Allah. We will not eat and drink for the sake of Allah, to copy those people who are sacrificing for Allah. Same like the wife of Prophet Ibrahim, when they sacrificed in Makkah, and then they have no water to drink, and when she was running between the mountain, Allah make it obligatory for the believers to do the same, to run between the Safa and Marwa during the Hajj. So some actions, if it is done for the sake of Allah, Allah like it very much. Like when Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was sacrificing his son on 10th of Zulhijjah, Allah liked it very much, and he sent the sheep to slaughter, and he made us obligatory for all the rich Muslim to do the sacrifice on that day. The same thing that tomorrow we'll be fasting, and one of the intention beside the other intention, like Prophet Musa and his follower were saved, so we thanks to Allah for this. One of the intention we can make, that family of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was hungry and thirsty on the day of Ashura, and they were martyred, most of them. So we will also going to be fast tomorrow for that intention, for the sake of Allah, that we are also giving sacrifice for the sake of Allah. Same like them. So he rejected the rule of Yazid, and he rejected to bay'ah for him. So they fight the army, which is thousands. And they were only 72 with the children and women. So imagine the 72 fighting to the thousands. And they gave them very hard time. Whole day of Ashura, the 10th of Muharram, the family of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and their friends and their relatives and their followers, 72 of them, including the women and children, they fought against the army of thousands. And until the Maghrib time, they were able to prolong the war. And one by one, his sons were martyred, his nephews, his brother Abbas, and all his friends and relatives were martyred. Only the women left. Only left were his sister, his wives, Zainab, his sister, his wives, his daughters, and only one son left, which was not killed. It was not martyred. Ali, his name also, like his two sons, Ali Akbar, Ali Asgar, were martyred. When he when his brother Abbas, he see that the young Ali Asgar, 6 months old, is crying for the water, he go to get water, and he was able to get water. But when he was coming back, the people attacked him, and they cut his right arm and left arm. He hold the skin, water skin with the teeth, and they arrow the water fell down. Then finally, they slaughtered him. They murdered him. And then Husayn radiallahu anhu, he brought his 6 months old son to the army. Please give water to him. He cannot fight to you. If he drink water, he will not become a warrior. He is crying for water. They shoot the arrow. They kill the 6 months child of Husayn radiallahu anhu. And the blood of his son was in his hand. And he raised it and said, Allah accept from me. This my son also is sacrificed in your way. So Allah accept from me. And finally, when no man left except the one son who was sick, the Zainul Abidin, Ali his name also, and then Husayn radiallahu anhu, he went himself to the thousands of army, he fought, he killed many of them, then finally he was slaughtered. And his head was cut and brought to the Yazid. So that's what's happened, all this on the Yom Ashura, that how this great grandson of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sacrificed all his family, but not to surrender against evil, not to surrender against injustice, and not to surrender against the thing which is against the law of Allah. So may Allah give us a great lesson from that story. Ameen. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. الحمد لله الذي نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ومن يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وقال الله تعالى بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام ميم أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِ فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. The meaning of this ayat, Surah Al-Ankabut, the spider, Alif Lam Mim, did the man think that he will be just survived or given salvation by just saying, I believe. No, that's not enough. وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. And the man think that they are not going to have a trial. Walang subok. No, there should be the trials. And Allah said, and surely those before them were tried, were given the trial. So Allah can know who are the truthful and Allah can know who are the liars. So when the trials comes, then you can see the truthful and the liars. When the trials come, he said, I'm a Muslim, I'm a believer. When trials come, he ran away from Islam because he is not true Muslim. He is not true in his belief. As long as he is getting everything good, he is firm on Islam. And when the trials come, he ran away from Islam. That's not Muslim. That's not a believer. So Allah put the trial to check. If you are true Muslim, you will be firm on your feet when the trials comes. Now, if you can go to the human history, previously we thought that the greatest trial of all time was given by Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. That when Allah called him, Allah commanded him to sacrifice his son Ismail. And he was successful in this trial. And his son was accepting to submission with him. They were both submitted to Allah, and Prophet Ibrahim was sacrificing his son. But Allah did not accept it, and Allah changed the sheep to exchange, and that became Eid al-Adha. But the story of the Prophet grandson Husayn is greater. Why? Because his sacrifice was accepted. In front of his very eyes, his sons were slaughtered, his nephews were slaughtered, his brother, his colleagues, his friends, his relatives, everyone was slaughtered in his eyes. And he's not complaining, Allah, why you did to me this? Prophet Isa was about to be sacrificed, but Allah changed. Allah did not get sacrifice from Prophet Jesus. It was another person was crucified. But the sacrifice of grandson of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Husayn, his sacrifice was accepted. All the family except the woman and only one son, everybody was slaughtered in his eyes. And he can just say one thing. Okay, I accept Yazid is my Khalifa. Finish. Just one thing. Okay, Yazid, you are my Khalifa. Let us free. No, he don't want to do it because it's against Islam. I don't want to compromise anything which is against Islam. I don't want to surrender to evil. I doesn't want to surrender to the tyrant. I doesn't want to surrender to injustice. Because he believed that it's against Islam that the father can inherit his son. That's called monarchy. There is no inheritance in Islam in the matter of rule. A Khalifa cannot make his son Khalifa. That's against the constitution of Islam. That's against the constitution of the Quran. That's against the constitutions of our religion, Islam. That's against the law of Allah. That's what's happening in the Middle East. The king and his sons are taking rule. 100% haram, this one. Allah did not approve this in his book. The rule in Islam is by the choice of the Muslims to give the rule to the best person who can rule. So Husayn radhiyallahu anhu, he can just say, okay, Yazid, you are my Khalifa. Let my family to be free. Let my family to go with me. No. He slaughtered all his family one by one. And finally his life he gave for Allah. And he became the lesson for the whole mankind, for the greatest sacrifice for all human beings. And the greatest trial inflicted upon him. And he was able to succeed. And if we are not going to discuss it, then we are not loyal to family of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why I choose this khutbah to speak about it. And tomorrow inshallah is Ashura. We must fast on that day. For many reasons, because many prophets were blessed on this day, including the Prophet Musa. He was saved, including his followers from Fir'aun. They crossed the Red Sea. And one of the great things happened in this day is the sacrifice of the Prophet's family.